All right, I think we are on. Hello, everyone out there in the world. Hope everyone's doing great. I'm Darren Fink, and I'm stalling for time while people join in and we see who's getting on here for our first Monday Caregiver check-in of 2019. So we are getting ready to start here. Let me see if we actually have a special guest that's going to be joining us, and I believe she's going to be getting on here pretty soon. So I'll wait and see. I'm actually going to switch over. You're going to see me looking over here. Let's see who we have joining here. We have all sorts of fun folks that are joining in with us right now. And I am trying to wait for our special guest. We have author Heffron that is going to be joining on with us today for the first Caregiver check-in of 2019. Let me go ahead though, and I will go ahead and tell you guys that this is our Caregiver check-in. I'm Darren Fink, one of the co-founders of Transfiguring Adoption. Every Monday we take an hour out of our schedules and we sit down with everyone that joins in with us as caregivers, foster adoptive parents, also professionals, and anyone interested in the process or interested in helping foster and adoptive families. We sit down for this hour just to talk, share advice, to ask questions, and just make sure that we are equipping ourselves to better be able to help kiddos that are coming from traumatic pasts. So this is a time for you guys to watch and to share and to ask questions and to learn. This is not my time, this is your time. So if you ask a question, what we do is at the beginning we have a topic, and once we get going with the topic, if you have a question or something you want to talk about more, we're going to talk about that, and we are going to follow that. So, very cool. I'm going to get on here and see if I can get a few folks on here. Let's take a look here. So, today we are going to be, like I said, we have author, hopefully if she can get in here, we have author Heffron is going to be joining us today. Whoops. Let me see what Anne's having a little trouble getting going here. Let me see. Hold on, hold that thought. One thing I want to ask everyone is this is the first caregiver check-in of the new year. I want to know how many of you still have your Christmas tree up. Well, I'm trying to help Anne here. Okay. And if you are on there, if you can comment in here, I will try to get you on. Let's see here. Because I am not seeing. Hey, can everyone do me a favor? If you are watching, we're getting all sorts of people in here. I'm seeing all sorts of cool things. Can you folks give me a thumbs up if you can see and if the sound quality and everything looks okay? If everything looks okay, can you give me a thumbs up on here? Because I am not. Okay, swipe left. Okay, I might have to redo this because it is telling me that Okay, let's see. Can everyone give me a thumbs up, or can you comment and say, I can hear you, Darren, so that I know that everything's working good and you guys are all good? But I would love also to hear who still has a Christmas tree up. We definitely have a Christmas tree up still in our house. We have not taken ours down yet. We haven't gotten to that place yet. So, yeah, we have not been in that place to be able to take down our Christmas tree. I think the worst time that we ever had was we had our Christmas tree was up all the way through February. Almost to the end of February. So it was pretty bad. But things happen, and sometimes you have that happen. So let's see. Hopefully Anne can get on here. I'm not seeing anyone's comments on here, although on my laptop I am seeing all sorts of people giving thumbs up and stuff like that. So hopefully we're doing okay here. Hopefully Anne can get on here and we can get started. So another thing, interesting thing that I wanted to tell you guys that we haven't seen you guys all winter or all December, I guess. We took a break in December. We were able to give out our ELF Squad, which is our volunteer organization, volunteer mobilization group. They were able to fill out 1,800 thank you note cards in the end of November and then into December. And they were able to give them out to foster care agencies. So we're really excited because they were different things that we could do to encourage foster caregivers and just help make them feel like they're doing a good job so that they can keep taking care of kiddos. Because I think in this journey, a lot of times that we feel like that we're inadequate or we're not doing well. Aha! Anne found us. Let me see. Bring Anne on. Adding her. Maybe. We'll see if we can get her added on here. It says that it's adding you, so I hope it is. But that was a really neat thing because we were able to give out 1,800 thank you notes, give caregivers encouragement, and it just kind of gave them hope and encouragement to keep taking care of kiddos. And I think all of us need that from time to time. We need that encouragement that we are doing okay and that everything is going well so that we can keep moving on. So it was really neat to see all these people from different states doing that. So, hey, Gail, I see Gail Swift on here. Haven't spoken with you in a long time. Glad to see you here. Everyone, Margie says hi too. She was not able to make it here. She wanted to make it for the first one, but she was not able to. She's hoping to meet it for the next caregiver check-in next time. So it says that it's trying to add Anne into the conversation. So hopefully we will get added in here. But I'm curious still, is anyone who has their Christmas tree still up? Does anyone still have a Christmas tree up in their house? If you can give me a thumbs up or the heart button if that still is your case in your home. And while we're waiting for Anne to get on here, I'm going to go ahead and just tell everyone the legal small print real quick, and I'm going to start jumping into things, and then hopefully Anne will get on here and we can talk together, all together as a group. So Transfiguring Adoption is a nonprofit that helps foster and adoptive families. We nurture foster and adoptive kids by giving a hoot about their families. The Caregiver Check-In, we do this every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is a time for us to encourage each other, to give each other hope. We are not medical, legal advice. We are not trying to give you advice that goes against what your caseworker or your agency would be saying. We are just trying to encourage and give you hope so that we can all make sure that we're successfully helping kiddos. If you can just not sue us because we don't have any money. So let me, one more time, I think Anne is almost here. Let me give a shout out. Thanks for hanging with me, you guys. Let me try one more time to add her in here. We've done this before, and I've never had this much problem before. So one thing that Margie and I, when we were kind of doing vision casting and trying to figure out what we were going to do for this year, one thing that we wanted to pay attention to was a theme that we were kind of getting toward the end of 2018 and going into 2019 was fear. And it's been interesting because fear has been something that's been talked about going into fear has been something that has been going into 2019 that a lot of people that we see in different venues are talking about. So it's really interesting. We thought we definitely wanted to talk about fear in 2019 and just make this a year where we're talking about how to replace fear with hope, how to replace fear with encouragement. discussing fear and what makes something scary, what makes something, what gives you the heebie-jeebies about it. And I think that for a lot of us as caregivers, I think something that really scares us about different aspects of foster care or adoption is that it's unknown. Like we just don't understand what's going on because a lot of the aspects of foster care and adoption are foreign to a lot of us. We don't understand how things work. We don't understand what our children are going through because they're coming from places that we've never been before. And so that can be scary and can cause a lot of fear in all of us. So that's something that we wanted to touch base on and just talk about fears and talk about what that looks like. So let me see. Is everyone seeing me okay on here? Let me see if I can help. If Anne can join us, Anne is, she is an adult adoptee. She has written a book. Her book is called You Don't Look Adopted. Fantastic book. If you've not read it, it is really amazing. We have it reviewed on our website. It's really, really cool. And she gives her unique perspective on adoption. And Anne is just a phenomenal person to give that. She uses a lot of her, I don't know how to describe it. She has just a very great way of conveying her feelings, her ideas, and being able to articulate how she feels as an adult adoptee and different thoughts that she had growing up and piecing them together and just having them really articulated well so that as a foster adoptive parent, for me, it's gold because that helps me to understand what's going on in other kiddos' minds and brains that I might not understand otherwise. So I'm really hoping that she can get on here because I think she would really be able to speak to us a lot on fear. So we'll see if she's able to get on here. But her book is called You Don't Look Adopted by Anne Heffron. Let me know if you've actually read that book because I'd be interested to know what other people thought about it. I'll actually, if I get a chance here, hey Christina, glad that you're joining us. If I get a chance, I'll go and I'll find that review and see if I can post it here on the comments down here because it really is a phenomenal book. And the times that I've spoken with Anne, she, like I said, she just does a really good job of articulating herself and her words and giving, she gives very good picture images through her words to help you to understand how children from traumatic places might be understanding. And she gets it so well because she herself is an adult adoptee. And so she understands a lot of the feelings and different things that go along with that. And we are just not, we are striking out with getting Anne connected to here. So hopefully something will happen here. One other book that I wanted to let you guys know about that we got over the winter was a book from Jessica Kingsley Publishing. It's called An Introduction to Autism for Adoptive and Foster Families, How to Understand and Help Your Child. Okay, let's see. Anne might be on here now. Let's see. And Anne, it's not letting me do it because you're on your computer and you have to be on your phone to do it, I guess. Okay. But let's take a look at this. So the back of this, this book is actually by Katie Hunt and Helen Rodwell. The back of it says, written for busy foster carers and adoptive parents, this book provides a concise introduction to autism spectrum disorder and how to support a child with diagnosis. It emphasizes the common strengths children with ASD have, as well as offering strategies for any behavioral issues that are likely to arise, highlighting how these can be exacerbated by the care system and adoption process. The strategies include social scripts, reduction of sensory input in a child's environment, and encouraging parents to think about self-care, which is another theme that keeps popping up. a lot is self-care. So this book is suggesting that. Yeah, definitely. Let me know if anyone else has read this book. This is one of the books in 2019 that is on our list to review, so I'll be watching out for that in the future. But Anne is still trying to connect with us, so hopefully she's determined. Like, I'm seeing messages and she's like, we can do this, I can get on here. So we are gonna get Anne on here. But what are some fears that you as parents or foster adoptive parents, what are some fears that you have while you're raising your children? I know that, like I said, one reason we want to talk about fear is because I think for foster and adoptive parents, there's that whole, like, we don't know, we don't understand what things are going to look like. We understand what life looked like as for us growing up because we lived through it. And so we get that picture, but we don't understand necessarily what life looks like for our children because, quite honestly, a lot of times, I'll speak for myself. I know that some of my children going to a university or college is not something that is going to be feasible or viable for them after high school. And I know the first time wrapping my head around that, that was something scary because I was always taught that you needed to go to college and get a good job. And that's not something that is meant for my kids. They have a different life, a different path, and so it just looks different. But the unknowing of what that future like, what is, if you take college or like a secondary school out of the equation, then what does life look like? That's scary for me because I'm not sure what it looks like, because I know what life looks like when I went through it, but I'm not sure what it looks like for them now. So that creates fear and anxiety in me. And I think, and maybe not that situation for you, but what are situations that cause fear and anxiety in you because you don't know the future. You can't see the path that your children are on. You don't know what the future holds. What are some fears that you have? Excuse me. I think that can cause a lot, whatever your situation is, I think that causes a lot of anxiety in us. And when we have anxiety, that's when things kind of get out of whack. That's when scary things happen, because that's when we ourselves as caregivers stop thinking higher functions and stop thinking rationally, and we let our emotions and different things take over. So yeah, it's definitely not a good situation to be in. And I think that's why this year, Margie and I really wanted to concentrate on everything we do with transfiguring adoption is how do you overcome those fears? And I think a lot of times it's looking at that and just realizing that it's different. Things are different. Let's see if I can bring Anne. It's asking me if I want to bring Anne on camera now. Let's see if I can try this now. Okay, let's see if we can get our guest on here. But what are some different things that cause anxiety or fear? What are things in your kids' futures that you don't understand or you don't see or was different? What are things that are different for your children than were different for you growing up? I know for a lot of us, just even the fact that we're on here on Facebook Live watching this, that's different for us. Like, we didn't have social media growing up. And so I think, how does social media play into our children's lives? And I think that can be for any parent, not just a parent from with kids with trauma backgrounds. I think there's that whole like just aspect of how do we navigate our kids having social media and being responsible and not getting into trouble on the internet and different things like that. I think, I know I've I've been actually at agency seminars and different things like that where they're talking about safe activity online and talking to your children about how to be safe online. I think that is an area for us parents that can cause a lot of anxiety and a lot of fear because we don't understand what that looks like to be a child growing up with all of that necessarily. I know I grew up born in '78, and so I grew up mostly in the '80s, and so I having computers is not a foreign thing to me. We didn't have social media. We were back in the day when you had Prodigy or AOL and you had the dial up and it took forever. So we didn't have social media, but like they just had online boards or whatever. That's foreign to me completely. But there's just different things. Um, like it's not completely foreign to me, but growing up with having immediate access to all sorts of people in the world is just foreign to me, and that can cause a lot of fear and anxiety. And I think it's helpful. Well, I'll ask you guys, what do you think is helpful when you have these anxieties, like things like social media or different things that you don't understand? What are ways that you can overcome these fears? What are ways that um, when you don't understand what something looks like or how the future is going to look, what's some way that you can overcome that? How do you overcome that, or what do you do with that? Okay, let's see here. All right. We are still trying to get Anne on here, and she is just not having any luck getting on here. All right. But one way that Margie and I were really looking at things is just realizing we were even talking about how a lot of times with our kiddos' lives, things look different. Um, and that's what I've been going on about, that it causes the anxiety. So when you have so Christina's saying get informed research. That definitely helps to calm anxiety. I think the more you can know about something, so I mean, it just makes logical sense. If you don't understand something, if you don't understand where something's going, learn about it so that you can replace that unknowingness with knowledge, and then that kind of quiets you down because you understand things. Um, Hold on, Anne is definitely trying to get on here still, and she is a wealth of knowledge. I really want you guys to hear from her. Um, Let me see if I can help her out here. Okay, let me see here. So I think if you can make yourself as knowledgeable as possible, and that means going to finding articles that you can read on subjects, if you can go doing even things like this where if we had Anne on here, just even talking with people that have been through the process before or professionals, anyone that you can talk to so you can replace that unknowingness with knowledge. I think that always works to quiet us down, like quiet our fears, because you kind of understand it equips you and you kind of understand where things are going. Here, Anne said she's on here. Let's see if we can get her on here now. Maybe we can. I hope we can. Okay. But definitely research helps that a lot. I think another thing is just accepting and knowing that things are going to be different, and knowing that when different comes along and it doesn't look like what you were expecting or look like what you were wanting, it's different, and different's not bad. And I think there's a lot of times where I've actually had to stop myself and just say, this is different, but different's not bad. Even when like I'm using the example where some of our kiddos, it's just not feasible for them to go on to a university setting. So, but it's fine. That's fine. In my growing up in central Illinois, you were taught, you know, you need to go to college, go to a good college, get a good job. With our kids, it's different, and different is not bad. They can still have awesome jobs. They can still be contributing members of society, and be fantastic. They can be fantastic people in their own way, and that should be celebrated. they're still going to overcome hurdles in their lives, and grow as people and be phenomenal. So, very cool. I think, though, I think it's a conscious effort because I think you constantly are having to stop and just say, it's different, and different is not bad. And different is not bad. So, what are other things that you know, either with yourself or with other people, that cause fear? What are things that cause fear for foster and adoptive parents? Because it really is. I wholeheartedly believe, like, the more Margie and I have been talking about just how to help foster and adoptive parents, it's just that whole idea that I think fear really can blind us, and it just stops us dead in our tracks. And it's even stuff that, like, I know that some of the children's books that we have that we've reviewed are talking about how our children are crippled basically with fear and anxiety and trauma in the brain because they can't access the higher functioning parts of their brain. And I think that can be true for us caregivers too, that we can just paralyze ourselves, and really our whole family, because we're the ones that should be steering the ship. We can paralyze our whole families when we let fear and anxiety take hold of us. But what are other fears and anxieties that foster and adoptive parents have? Christina says reunification with their birth family that are still involved. Oops. Whoa, I have several people in here. Thanks, you guys. Reunification with their birth family that are still involved in difficult situation is one of my fears. Definitely, because you're scared about safety, right? So going to happen when these things are out of hand.
Hey, Ian is here. I had to make the phone so it could rotate.
What? Hey, it worked.
I know, I'm sorry.
You're fine. So what's going on here? It's Ann. It's so glad to hear.
I learned a new trick.
Well, this is Ann Heffron. She is an author and adult adopter. Like I was saying, is a wealth of knowledge. Every time I open with Ann, does so well articulate and knowledge situation. She's just the perfect person for parents to talk if you're really wanting your already shared about your books.
Oh,
Good to go.
Thank you.
So, and we're talking about here, Mark and I talked about for 2019, one thing that we're really wanting to be with caregivers is just the whole idea that fear can be paralyzing for not only children, but also for us. What are some, off the top of your head, what are fears that our kids, foster care, or some fears they're having?
Well, I heard you talking about your kids and where they may end up going to school. Was that one of your fears about well, how did that fit into the whole conversation?
So one of my fears that I have is that just that I have some kiddos that university is not viable for them.
Right.
It is not something that they can do. And so I've just had to come to accept that it's different, because in my Midwestern thinking, they need to go to college.
Yeah, I think that one's huge. I think I'm the only one out of the three of us.
Hey, Ann, while you're answering that, I'm going to go get my headphones because everyone's saying the sound is long.
Okay. So should I keep talking? I'm just going to sit here and stare.
if it is in the show. Oh, and we're still going. There we go, I think.
Yeah, I can hear you. That's good.
Okay, there we go.
So we're talking
So, yeah.
about fear and expectations about where kids should go after high school. Is that
right? So let me catch up with some of our comments too. I think most of the people say that our sound is wonky. Heather Brandt is saying some fear she has, or other people, I guess she knows, have fears over what will happen to, well, like what will adulthood look like? I guess children with disabilities. Like just having those fears. But I would even say even from my own perspective, what I have fears of what will adulthood look like for my kids, because I have to change my way of thinking, and that things are different, and then I'm scared what's adulthood going to look for them.
it's scary.
It's scary.
I think it's scary. It's scary for a number of reasons. It's scary. I mean, I'm 54, but I'm still kind of a kid. And I think that not as much was known about how relinquishment affects the brain. So I think there were some steps that I missed. Let me back up. There was a lot of pressure in our house to go to college. That was just a given that you went to college. And I'm not sure that, I mean, I dropped out 3 times before I figured out I was supposed to do my homework. And that sounds super basic. And I was a smart kid and I was a good kid, but doing homework wasn't as easy as it sounds. It sounds like you just do your homework, but if your brain is spinning and you don't know why it's spinning, it's more complicated. So I think if my mom had been more comfortable with me just being a waitress for a little bit after high school, so I could have caught up with myself, I think it might have been a little easier, but I was really ashamed when I would drop out of school. I felt free, but I also felt ashamed, like I was doing the wrong thing when I would just wait tables. But I wasn't ready to be in school yet.
Let's talk about that for a little bit, because I think that speaks to a big fear in all of us. I know we even reached out to you a little bit, because you shared a blog about your experience with homework. And I think that's scary for my Midwestern mindset again, where you're talking about, I was brought up, you need to go to college, you need to work, get a good job, go to a good college. And then I have kiddos that are struggling to do homework. And I remember someone telling me at one time, at home you're working on relationships, you're not working on homework. And that is such a weird concept to me.
Yeah.
Like why would it scares me, because I'm like, well, what's going to happen to this kid if I don't have them do their homework?
Yeah, and I'm not saying don't do homework. I mean, when I said say no to homework, I mean, clearly I was saying something, but it's not what I meant. I didn't mean don't do your homework. What I meant was this idea of like homework to me. It was. What I wanted to say no to was I can't do it the way you want me to do it. It's not working. I can't do lists. I can't do to-do lists the way that, like I would, so when I had a lot of homework, I would eat a whole lot of sugar just so I could get the spin, just so I could crash, just so I could sort of focus. And I think that's called self-medicating. But I wouldn't be in a good mood when I crashed. So it wasn't like, oh, now I'm fully functional. It's like, wow, now I'm working on 2 wheels instead of 4, but I'm doing the best that I can. And I think that if my teachers, if my parents had known about executive function, had known about the prefrontal cortex, about how my brain had a harder time organizing and prioritizing things than perhaps their brains do, that maybe they could have figured out ways to help me. Because once I figured out how to do my homework, and really what happened was I went back to live with my parents when I was 24 years old, and I would go into their cellar. And I didn't have any distractions. I didn't really have a social life. It wasn't lonely, but I got all my work done, and I got all A's, and I was super proud of myself. But I had failed. I had gone out into the world. I had waited tables. I saw what it was like to try to earn a living without a college degree. And I finally wanted to do it for myself, which made it different because I wasn't trying to do it for them. And if I was doing it for them, they both had all A's in school. Like, it was going to be so hard. If I was going to compete with them, I was going to fail. I mean, I'm not really answering your question. I guess what I'm saying is, for your kids, I would just get as much help for them as possible, as much tutoring. I'm not saying don't push them, but I'm also saying not going to college right away. It doesn't mean that that's going to be their whole life. Sometimes they have to claim it for themselves. But that's very scary because the fear is that they're going to fall in love with some loser and then get married and live in a dump and have 16,000 children and be asking you for money every month.
Well, I remember too, having a friend growing up that they did go off to college. Was adopted. Went off to college. Was living in. I think they would say it was a life that was very controlled. And told you're going to do this when we tell you you're going to do it. Went to college. Experienced freedom. Went wild. And this person is, the short of it is, they had to get to what you were talking about, where they said, I want to go to college, I want to go to school, this is mine.
Yeah.
And then as a 35-year-old person getting their bachelor's.
Yeah, I think the timeline may be different. And part of it is just having as little long-term damage as possible. And by that, I mean, you know, if someone decides not to go to college and to have a low-paying job, if they buy a car and all of a sudden they have all these payments to do, and then they're strapped into that life because they bought a bunch of stuff, that gets complicated. I think having it's good for kids to have parents that have expectations, but to have expectations that are flexible. How flexible, right? I mean, I had to know that it was okay that I couldn't handle school, and that didn't mean I was a bad person. It just meant that I needed a year, and for me to have room to experience myself, but at the same time, gosh, Darren, it's hard. I mean, how do you, it's like, it's someone's path, right? And the thing, once a child's been given up or wasn't able to be kept by the mother, the path has been radically changed. And I don't know how that I don't know the answer. I feel like people do well when they know that they're loved and that people believe in them, and that also they're given room to make their own mistakes. But my parents took me back in. I did some really terrible things. I mean, I stole, I lied, and I was the worst. and they still let me back in, and they let me into their house, and they paid for my college, and that changed my whole life. But other people
That's
might have
awesome.
said, you know what, you've messed up too many times, you can't come back, and then I would have been in trouble.
And I think one thing that you were talking about too is the word different keeps coming up. And different isn't bad. It's just different.
Right. It's just different.
It's just different. Are there any I guess we're thinking of, I know the sound is echoing, I guess, when I'm talking, and I don't know what it is.
Oh.
I guess we could work in with some more technical issues here. Does anyone have, that's watching, do you have any questions for Anne while she's on here? Or like I said, she has a unique perspective. What are... growing up, were there any fears that you can think of that you would talk about, Anne, that other kids might have growing up? I know you were talking about just even trying to live up to your parents.
Yeah, you know, I think if my parents had observed me more closely, they might have seen that there were some things going on. But I think for a lot of parents, that's frightening. I think I still have this idea that adopted kids should come with an owner's manual, and the problem is I don't know what it exactly should say. I feel like I wish some neurologist would get involved and to give us 10 steps of how we could rewire the brain. But I think if my parents had found some sort of therapist, so I could go to the therapist and the therapist could ask me what my biggest fears were, and to be honest with them, because I wrote about this in my book, I think, but even as a young kid, I had a hard time returning library books, and so I would hide them in my closet, and then as a little kid, I would want to kill myself because I had these library books that were overdue in my closet, and I didn't know what I was going to do about them. And I thought that, you know, my parents didn't have enough money to pay the fines, and that, you know, it's such a small thing, but it caused me a lot of anxiety. And there were a lot of things like that. And if I could have gone to someone and felt like I could lay these things on the table and have them actually treat me like treat me like a person instead of saying, oh no, you're fine. Like understanding that my brain is going to work differently than your brain. And so like, could I have a partner in crime in figuring out how I'm going to live this life? I think that it's too much parents depend on their own resources to understand adopted kids, and I don't think it works.
No, I don't think so either. Actually, someone on here mentioned that I was asking, how do you overcome fears? And they said by researching topics. And I think even doing stuff like this and hearing from someone like you talk and just getting ideas and hearing what our kids are going through helps a lot.
Did you see that there was on Facebook, there was a young woman, I'm not sure exactly, I think she's in high school still, in Westwood, Massachusetts. There was an article in the Boston Globe about how she started an online support group, I guess, or online support resource for teenagers, for adopted teenagers.
I haven't seen that. That's neat.
If you Google Boston Globe and adoption and teenager, it'll come up, and I think she's the future. I'm trying to. I think, well, really, I should do it. Start a GoFundMe for her so that it could become global.
Well, it's nice because that allows more people to get together and allows anonymity if you need it.
Yeah, and she was adopted from China, And she actually won an award, so she got money to start this project. And I think that's the kind of thing that hasn't been there, where a kid could go to the computer and type in some questions to another adopted kid and get some support. I think that's fantastic.
That's awesome.
And it's also not having to hide it from the parents.
Yeah, that's the best too. I think is when the parents. I think when you were talking about too that adoptive and foster parents can't rely too much on themselves. I think part of it on our end is we need to realize and be humble enough to say that we need help.
Yeah.
And just even like with things like that, if there is an online group that our team can go to and talk with another team and get help, being open enough and transparent enough with our child to make that work.
Having faith that if your child is going to other people for help, it doesn't mean your child's going to disappear. It doesn't mean that all of a sudden your child's going to say, you know what, you're not my real parents anyway. I'm out of here. I think that's what would happen.
Heather says that she is so thankful for transparent adoptees, adult adoptees like Anne. She also says we don't have great in-person support groups for kids here, so knowing there may be online ones at some point that my preteens can access will be helpful. Yeah, I think that's going to open up for a lot of rural communities. I know we have a lot of people in rural communities that are concerned because they don't have support for the adults and they don't have support for their kids.
Right. I'll send you the link to the Boston Globe article.
That's great. Actually, if you come back and you put it in the comments, there's some folks on here that want to see it. That'd be great. Does anyone have any other questions for Anne? We've kind of overcome. Andrea Burke put, it looks like she got, I'm going to click it there. An article that says how to really talk about.
Oh yeah,
there's a thing.
That's the article.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's it.
Yep, that's the article. Looks like it. I've got a sign-in thing that's covering it up. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, wonderful.
Okay, so we have it on there. Great. Thanks, Andrea.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any other questions for Anne while we have her on here and have her available about anything about adoption, anything about fears, anything that she could answer? Again, she is amazing. Also, if you are not following her on Instagram or Facebook, I guess you're on Instagram the most, aren't you?
Yeah, I have two. I have the one that's the Ann_Heffron, that's the memes, and then I just have Ann Heffron where I take photographs. So there's two.
The memes are awesome, and they're always point on too. So like, there's so many times we're looking through the memes and we're like, yes, that.
It's great. What I did during the day, and I'll say, well, I wrote a
meme. and they have no idea how much it helped. What are some other I guess when I'm thinking too, just with my young children, like I'm seeing them, I'm thinking even elementary school, like it's funny how a lot of things revolve around school.
Yeah.
I think that's like a big arena where we want our kids to succeed. But I know that there are a lot of fears when we see that our kids aren't quite acting like the other kids.
Yeah.
And you so badly want them to succeed because you love them, and you so badly want them to be at the top of the class, or you want them to be on the first string in the sports team, the first chair for whatever instrument. And that just might not be our kids. Their success looks different.
Yeah, I sure wish I had the answers to this, and I mean, I'm gonna spend the rest of my life trying to figure it out. But if I were to adopt a kid, and I'm not that great at communication, I'm just not that good at it. So I think I would pretend that my child had a stone in her shoe all the time, and that she was slightly uncomfortable. And so I would spend a lot of time just trying to hold her. And so I think that the thing about relinquishment trauma is that a lot of times you feel something's wrong, but you don't know what it is. And so even if you just have the opportunity, like sometimes if someone holds you, you feel comfortable enough to start to cry, and you don't have to know why. It's just getting the tears out, and then you can go run around. I think I find as an adult, I mean, since I wrote my book, I've spent 2 years, I'm done now, but I spent 2 years crying. And I needed, it's in our bodies. But I couldn't explain to someone like, oh, I think I'm missing my mom. I was just crying, I just needed.
Right.
And so I think part of it is for parents to take extra time for their kids and to really maybe not even ask so many questions because the kids don't know. But I think touch is huge. I think it's the child's skin might not feel completely sealed. Like you get taken from your mother before you've actually individuated. And so being held, I think, would be, if I could live my life over again, I would ask my mom to hold me. Like, having her rub my back was the best thing in the world. There's all these nerve endings in your back. It activates your parasympathetic nervous system. If she was alive, I would ask her to rub my back.
That's awesome. So another question, I guess
thought question that we had pop in, what I was going off of, only when your child's having trouble making friends because of the different neurochemistry and different things they have. Is that something as parents that, we get scared about that? Hey, my child's not making friends.
That's hard, and that is scary. And that's why I would run to a therapist, because it's so important. But like, my little brother was so desperate to have friends, and it was so painful to watch because he just didn't have the social skills to do it. And as a parent, I'm not sure I would have known how to teach him how to make friends. But I guess I'd get a pet. But first, just so that he'd have something to love. And then
absolutely right?
Yeah, and then I don't know, hire someone. I don't.
See, right now, Margie, for those of you that don't know, Margie's my wife. She's been wanting to get a cat for I don't know how long. We have one of our kids that's getting ready to move out that's allergic to cats. You're now strengthening the whole get a cat thing because we have another kid that probably needs a cat.
Well, I'll tell you though, I think it was a problem for me because I used to always get my daughter animals, but then they wouldn't work out and I would give them away. And she's 21 now, and she said something, and I said, I'm so sorry I gave away your animals. And she said, Mom, the question is, why did you get them? So, you can use an animal to fill a hole, but there's also like the awareness that I'm trying to fill a hole.
You are filling a hole.
Yeah, I am. So you could use this. If you don't want a cat, you could also use this for an argument for not getting a cat. But you know what? But truly, we are meant to love things. And if someone has a really hard time making friends, at least if they come home and they have an animal to love, it's a start.
Right. And I think too, if what you were talking about too, if I know one thing that impacted me as a child was just having one of my dad's mantras was, you can go out into the world, and when you come home, we love you and we accept you.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a go out and do whatever. If you're going to get bullied or made fun of, fine. But when you come home, you're safe.
Yeah, and not letting the kid escape into video games or something, that they still have to be engaged in the world, and that school may be really tough and it may be really lonely, but if if you have people that believe in you and if you have interests, at least it's a start. But there's plenty of kids that just disappear into video land and then
that's it.
That's it. Yeah.
Well, we are down on our last 5 minutes here, so I'm going to go ahead and ask everyone if you have any last questions or comments for Ann, or myself, I guess. Go ahead and ask those now. Ann, do you have anything big coming down the pike that you want to share, or anything interesting?
I am trying to write another book. It's yeah. I'm working on it. I started going to the gym, but still, for some reason, for 2 years after writing my book, I couldn't work out, and I'm reminded of how good endorphins are. So I think also, I mean, when you're talking about fears in kids, it's like it's so critical to keep your body moving. I'm reminded of how much better I feel when I'm falling off the Stairmaster.
Tell me that's going to be in the book.
I know, it's so funny.
That's awesome. As long as you're laughing about it, I'm going to laugh about it. That's awesome. Well, I'm not seeing any more questions come through right yet, but we will be checking this comment feed through the week if anyone has any comments or questions that they want to ask. And if you are asking Ann a question, she's not able to see it, we'll make sure to connect with her and make sure that she can answer. Thank you so much, Ann. Thank you so much. It took us a while to get through all these technical issues, but it happened.
Yeah, thank you for all the good work you do. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You guys, if you haven't followed Ann on Instagram, her Instagram is ANNE_Heffron, HEFFRON. You need to follow.
Oh, and you know what? I forgot. Pam Cordano and I also have a page on Facebook for our adoptee retreats. It's Beyond Adoption: U. We have one coming up in 2 weeks. It's almost full, but that's
Hey, definitely check that out. And if you're watching this, Ann is definitely a resource that you need to utilize. Just can't even tell you how rich of a resource. Definitely follow her on social media, support her, do anything you can. And as far as transfiguring adoption, this was our first caregiver check-in in 2019. We're going to be doing this every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Our volunteers are getting ready to do a nightlight drive again this year. They are going to be doing that in the month of February. So if anyone has nightlights they want to donate, get ready to donate them so that we can make kids feel safe at night.
That's so important. I love that you do that. I think that's the neatest thing. Yeah.
All of our volunteers love it. We'll never stop.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's so good.
It's fun. We love it. We get all sorts of cool stories. I would have never thought as simple a thing as a nightlight, because I'm always thinking of big things. Right. And then I'm like, a nightlight, it is a big thing.
Huge.
It is a huge thing.
Yeah, good work.
Well, Ann, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate you. Everyone, we're going to sign off. Love everyone. Appreciate this. This is Darren King with Transfiguring Adoption. We hope we're helping you nurture and grow your foster adoptive family. Thanks, Ann.
Bye.
Bye.